Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight, my guest host is RDV from the Great Midwest. We're going to be talking about the recent Ryan Reynolds Netflix drop called The Adam Project, where some might call it a science fiction thriller. No, it's not a thriller. Some might call it an action adventure movie. I don't know about that either. I call it really not much of anything because I didn't care for the movie that much, and we're going to discuss why, because RDV really likes it. He's going to let us know here in a minute his initial thoughts, but it's a very popular movie that's trending right now, and I think what the Adam Project does very well is it's a very good representation of what most films are out today if they're done somewhat well and entertaining. And based off the feedback I've seen online, majority of people seem to think it's a great film and heartwarming and everything else there too. So I'm in the minority here, RDV. We're both Ryan Reynolds fans. This movie's supposed to, in my opinion, be like, I don't know, an 80s kind of ET-ish throwback, child family friendly stuff. And we do like to, as extreme as we are, like to cover wholesome type things here too. So I'm guessing you liked it, but tell us what your initial thoughts were about it after watching it.
Before I watched it, I had, I'd seen I've seen the trailer and like it looked all right, not the biggest Mark Ruffalo fan, but giving the fact that that I haven't seen it, so I watched it though, and like I said, I actually thought it was actually pretty good. It was aimed more towards kids than adults, but wasn't as bad as Valerian. that was really bad, but people like that movie too. But this is a sci-fi adventure, and I say it's sci-fi because you got time travel, everything in there. You got it's science fiction. Going back to him meet his past self by mistake when he's trying to do something else. You find out the adventure part comes from them obviously being hunted down by people who want to stop Ryan Reynolds from changing the future. And I don't want to. I mean, the comedy, the kid in here, the kid Walker Scobell, I think he plays a little kid, plays a 12-year-old Adam, was spot on, like a little mini version of Ryan Reynolds. And I thought it was funny that Ryan Reynolds' character got annoyed by him because he finally got to see how annoying he is.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because with the film, when it starts off, it starts off like it's almost like an action movie. So it's like, okay, what's going on here? You got a spaceship flying around and it goes through a wormhole. And you're right, that the whole plot is that Ryan Reynolds, as an adult, I think in the year 2050, is being chased by an evil bad guy sounding voice, female sounding voice, and he's trying to escape. He's injured. So, okay, it's a nice way to start off like an action adventure sort of thing, especially if this movie's geared towards younger kids. In a way, I wish it were geared more towards younger kids. I think it'd have been a lot more forgiving and a bit more fun. And I feel that some of the adult stuff they have in here, the adults are going to look at it and go, man, I don't think that's a funny idea. And we'll talk about that shortly, but it starts off good. And unfortunately, I think the music though, at the beginning does not fit at all with it. I'm like, what's going on? It's whatever. But, you get single mom syndrome here too with a kid. And I will say this about him. I don't know how much he's been in, but obviously he's young. How much can he have been in? He does a very good job. I think your description of Ryan Reynolds being annoyed by his younger self is pretty spot on, and it works, because the thing is when you deal with younger kids, you either almost instantly like them or you don't. It's usually a binary kind of decision. Ryan Reynolds, unfortunately for Ryan Reynolds fans, is that he's the same Ryan Reynolds as 20 years ago. Even if he puts on a little weight and does some stuff like Deadpool, he's just got that snarkiness to him that is really, really great in certain doses. And unfortunately, I don't think you can make a movie full of it, even though there's a lot of Deadpool fans out there. So it was weird watching him and what is supposed to be his younger self interact, because it's not like they just meet. They're pretty much there for the entire movie, and it's based off that relationship. It's not surprising that they try to put some adult themes in there, because obviously dad died, but that's the Ruffalo character that we'll see a little bit later. But I've got to say this, and then I want you to kind of comment on it a little bit. I hate time travel for ideas for movies because they suck, and they try to explain away in here, and they try to give you some rules. So I'm like, okay, Ryan Reynolds is explaining to his younger self, hey, I just need to rest up for a few days, heal. My ship's based off of my DNA, and it's, I guess, organically healing on its own, whatever the future is. And so in a few days, I'll be out of here. And of course, we know things aren't going to go the way he says. But then when they start talking about time travel, he's like, Well, the thing is I was supposed to go back to 2008, it's 2012. I accidentally, came here, but I need to go back. I need to do something, and you don't need to know it. And then they go into this big thing about, well, when you change time frames, your emotions and your thoughts kind of actually dissipate and go away. You kind of don't remember that stuff. I'm like, look, you know what? That's at least a different take on it. And they at least attempted to address
Mhm.
the very difficult issue with time travel, meaning going back in time, typically. And it failed because obviously him and his younger self go back to 2008, and of course they remember everything, and it's like so. But it feels like two movies to me. It feels like it's a movie up to the first half, then Ruffalo's character shows up, which is supposed to be their father, who turns out invented time travel, and from there it's like a totally different movie. I mean, how did you see that?
Well, firstly, I mean, it wasn't really you mentioned before about them going back to the time it failed. He wasn't sure what was going to happen because you were setting everything. You said there's a slim chance that that we're not going to remember anything, but he's going to straight. He said above all odds, if you can hold on to that thought, to hug our mom, because he realized how much of a jerk he was, and he's trying to tell his 12-year-old self at the time, who it was a year after his dad died in a car accident, that hey, your mom's grieving really bad. We were such a jerk to her. He's trying to make
Mhm.
up for that. So he was hoping in a miracle that would happen. Of course, because this is a family friendly movie, it was the kid remembered. So and obviously
Right.
he remembered later.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they guys should go to meet his dad at the end, when they find out everything, it's like his dad is just the jerk as he is. If you realize it, if you looked at it,
Like
his
father, like son, right?
yeah. So I mean, I like the fact that they actually kept that. It'd be different if Ryan Reynolds' character wasn't a jerk and his dad was just a complete dick.
Hmm.
So I like the lace, like there's some consistency and the personalities and stuff like that. Uh, but his dad does have a change of heart, though. When they tell him, because originally his dad wants nothing to do with him, talk to either one of them, because well, he can't. He'll change. You can't change time, and his dad wouldn't let him get a word in. It was kind of slightly annoying, but eventually the dad, when the two both Adams go to take on the corporation, which basically had already committed time travel fraud.
Yep.
The woman they're working with, and I guess her being the villain, like the future self, not really strong villain type, but it felt
Weak,
like a Disney movie villain though.
weak.
It was really weak villain. Like I said, it wasn't like a rated R movie. It almost felt like a PG movie.
Should have been
Um,
G-rated. They should
yeah,
have kept it lighthearted and with,
yeah.
hijinks galore, and they could have made, I think, something out of it, really.
But yeah,
Instead,
I
they tried
mean,
to
like
make it adult, and it failed miserably.
I just said 95% of the people agree it was not a failure, bro. But then again,
Well,
I understand.
95
But I've
of
been
the
where you are though. But I've been where you are. People love Napoleon Dynamite. I hate that film. It is
well, here
stupid.
but going back to an original theme that, I always talk about a lot of times with films is, if you can understand the character or somehow relate to them, then that at least gives you a perspective to decide, if you like other characters or not. And so, one of the things with the younger kid that his younger Ryan Reynolds, the newish character acting,
Yeah.
I thought one, they gave him a lot of screen time, so the kid has to be believable in his snarkiness, which he is. But here's the problem with the way it's presented to you early on within the first, like, say, 5-10 minutes of the film with this young kid. A lot of people can look at this and go, this kid deserves to get his ass beat by the bullies. And frankly, the bullies to beat him up, I actually thought they did a good job as far as throwing punches and stuff. They looked like they
Mhm.
actually gave the intimidating kind of look like this guy can hit a little bit. And a little bit later on, there's a scene where even if you don't like the kid or you're like, well, okay, I get why he's snarky. It's just not presented well. But there's a scene where he follows Ryan Reynolds to the drugstore while he's buying some goods to kind of heal himself, and he comes out, and those bullies, for whatever magical reason, just happen to be there to bully him in front of adult Ryan Reynolds, and he gives him the big speech about punching him and standing up to the bully, which of course no parent ever wants to make if you watch movies at all today. And so the kid goes to do it and he screws up. But then Ryan Reynolds is an adult character. I guess it's supposed to be funny, threatens the little kid. And I'm watching this going, I understand what they're trying to go for here. And even if I thought it was funny, it didn't come across the way. And then a part of me goes, wait a minute. he's supposed to be here, and they both know they're are each other. And I just thought that's such a bad example to set. And it's like the parenting in here is completely non-existent. You know, we can talk single mom syndrome. We can talk about going out having a bad date. We can talk about her meeting Reynolds in the bar accidentally again early on, where he gives her advice that almost makes you want to cry because he's just such a great listener. That Ryan Reynolds appeals to everybody, men and women. And it's like, okay, you live in this multi-million-dollar house in the woods. Yeah, supposedly your husband died. You know, nobody really knows much about him until, of course, later on. And then when we meet your husband that is not around anymore, we find out he's an asshole. And it's like, who am I supposed to like here? Because the kid's annoying, even if we understand where he's coming from. The bullies are bullies. The mom is tired and played out. Ronald Reynolds is supposed to be, like you say, the figure that everything revolves around. But then when Zoe Saldana, or however you pronounce her name, shows up, of course, she's, you know, I'm a guy, so I can do anything. I'm better than Wonder Woman and all that. And then the horrible CGI and fight scenes come up. And it turns into any of these disaster CGI Marvel DC flicks where you've got the main guy who's hunting him down by the CGI DH Catherine Keener, who's horrible to your point, and the main guy has these so-called cops, for lack of a better term, attack them one at a time, ninja style. And unless it's an 80s canon ninja film, you can't do that. It just doesn't work. I mean, these are just rules that anybody that watches movies knows. And I get that they're trying to have a lot of Easter eggs and things in it too, and callbacks so kids can look at it and watch it. But I'm watching this movie going, I don't really hate anything about it, but it's not fun. It's boring. And when
And
Ruffalo comes in the second
disagree.
half, I know you disagree, but I'm okay. Tell me what in the first 10, 15 minutes is good.
First 10, 15 minutes good. I said as soon as the kids started mouthing off and speaking just like Ryan Reynolds, I was really impressed because that was not something I was going to expect. Because usually we've never seen that before with a Ryan Reynolds movie.
I'll give you that. I think that was
as far as him, the kids bullying him, he's smart off to them because he can't say anything. He's a small little pipsqueak. He just lost his dad. He's pissed. So of course he's going to be unlikable. He's as you find out later in the movie, it's revealed that we started hating our dad and hating everybody because of the fact that we were so angry. It was easier to hate than it was to deal with our emotions, which is understandable. I mean, I lost my dad. You know, I've gone through similar things. The kids beating him up and stuff, you know, and the mom actually came to his defense at the school and realized, hey, this is like the second, or third time. It's like, and you guys aren't doing shit. Why aren't these kids, being in trouble? Why is Adam being suspended? Look at his face. So he's marked off, you know what? Yeah. And the kid's stupid. He's 12 years old. He's in 6th grade. He's gonna smart off. It's you showing that the kid's actually, he's too smart for his own age, but he doesn't have the ability to fight back. So yeah, maybe he was doing that, lashing out for attention from his mom because his mom was too busy, and just he was also upset because of the fact that his mom, and gonna make that speech. He's like, Ryan Reynolds says, like, he thinks you're fine, you're moved on, you don't care, you don't love his dad. So and he's dating other guys. Yes, it's unlikable. If my dad had died at that young age and my mom started dating, I would not like her. I would not, I'm not like the guys either. So I can relate to that. But as far as
just on that alone, when to your point, her defending him, okay, great. That they're never going to make a school look bad other than incompetent in shows. But she's bitching at him in the car about, hey, this is the third time I just don't understand you, and
because she's frustrated. They're both.
I understand that. I get it, but it doesn't do anything as a viewer to sit there and say, "Oh, she's supporting him." And so, to me, she's not too busy, obviously, to go out and have a glass of wine, to go date the coworker, which, of course, is never a good idea. Period. And it's like
she's spiraling. Okay. Well, she's spiraling. In their defense, she's spiraling out.
So again,
she just lost her husband.
If you're trying to make a family-friendly movie that's fun and like a popcorn action film, like the 80s or whatever, which is what I felt like they were trying to do, or rip off, this is not the way to do it. To make characters that you go,
I never got the 80s vibe.
From the music and from the way it was shot. You didn't get like a
well, people use music all the time,
vibe from it.
No, I didn't get an 80s vibe. Yeah, people use music, they weren't, and they were using Boston. I think that's it. Was part of the music they're using. I'm not sure what the other songs were. I can remember. I watched it early this morning. But no, I like I said, the mother, she's got her own problems going out, and she's realizing that what she's doing is wrong. So she goes to fix it. But then, of course, before they could even do that, the other crap happens. They get older Adam gets found out. The people find out where he is. He has to force. They take the other younger self with him because his ship will not work, will not fly if he's injured. So of course this includes the younger kid to have more screen time because their interaction is I love it, but them going back and forth is fun, and you get to see them bonding and him realizing him remembering stuff that he purposely chose to forget about his dad and other things, So and just showing that him is growing up, he become a jerk. Where the other one, a 12-year-old, is still he's at that first stage, but he still remembers the good times. Like I said, and as far as the whole Zoe is, being his wife, Ryan Reynolds has never played a character where he's played the manly character. So in defense of that, he's always been that. He plays manly, yeah, but he always does the comedy stuff. He always does it where the woman outshines him.
That's true.
Yes, and that's his way he's stuff. So I mean, going into that movie, if you found that offensive, you should have known that was going to happen.
Well, I shouldn't have known it was going to happen. Maybe I should have known it was a
Yeah.
possibility. But the
Yeah.
point is they make her, she's explained to be, of course,
She
very
was top of his
beautiful,
class.
very
Yeah.
smart, top of the
Smart.
class,
Yeah.
best fighter pilot, and of course she's the best, combatant and everything else there too. And of course they have them meet just for a little bit, so things can not necessarily work their way with trying to say too much here,
The
and
other
it
thing
just
is
feels very forced and dull.
well, the thing he still hasn't even he said he still hasn't grown out of the thing where he gets beat up. Even older now, he still gets beat up, but he's still trying to fight back though. So I liked that they kept that in there. But yeah, I mean, I love the whole chase through the canyons and stuff like that with the kid. The kid's he's able to hold on. The kid's just grabbing onto his face, trying to hold on, the humor and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there was some good stuff in there. No, this wasn't Iron Eagle, and like in a sense,
Iron Eagle.
in defense, Iron Eagle.
This is no
not,
Iron Eagle.
Yeah,
that's funny. That's the best line tonight.
Iron Eagle has its cringy moments too, which is unbelievable. But no, but I said overall the whole movie, I thought it was a good movie. I give it a 7 out of 10 because there are some flaws. I'll admit that there are some things, but overall, I thought it was a very good movie. So
there are worse ways to spend your time, and unfortunately, I talked about here on the Xtreme show about how bad Halloween Kills was, and as a huge John Carpenter mark and horror mark, I was deeply offended by it. And I watched the recent Candyman. It's weak in a lot of areas, but there was a couple strong things I tried to support. And then also more recently, I didn't realize how bad it got reviewed till after I watched it, but the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the worst films I've seen in a very long time. And it's much worse than Halloween Kills, which is very hard for me to think that that's possible, that I could see these things back to back. And so when I look at a film like this, like I say, I'm not mad about it. There's nothing gratuitously offensive to me about it. And so by today's standards, that's not a bad thing. But to me, that doesn't automatically make it good. And I get frustrated with Ryan Reynolds' character because I think you summed it up perfectly. He always plays kind of second fiddle to the ladies. And in today's movies, that's a perfect fit for him. He has a snarkiness to him. I think he needs to go full heel, and I don't need cool guy Deadpool type of heel. I feel like he's got a lot of untapped potential that he hasn't had to really dwell upon because he's been able to do the same thing for 15, 20 years now. And while it's cool and it's as a shtick, it's I'm getting the same character in every movie, no matter how he gets dressed up. And
I've been a fan of his character, his stuff he's been doing since Two Guys, a Girl, and Pizza Place. That was back on Fox back in 2000.
Yeah, and I think I knew him from was it Van Wilder or something?
2005. Yeah, which he did after that.
Yeah, and so to me, like I say, he's likable. So he's very off-putting, and I'm not going to say he's charming, but he has a little bit of it. And it just, unfortunately, like I say, the problem's not him necessarily, or even the kid, or even Zoe and her being, a goddess or whatever. It's just there's nothing to really root for. If they made it a kids film and didn't try to get so deep about it, that's fine. But I don't know. I think 4 people I saw, if I counted correctly, had a credit for writing. That's too many people to write a film, especially when it's this basic. It's an insult. And if we got to have 4 people on here to have different types of points of view accurately represented, written in certain scenes. I don't know if that's how all these movies are made. We know the big corporate ones are, and with Netflix shelling out money like it, it's neat to see Ryan Reynolds in a lot of different films, knowing he's going to have something like this every year. Because, like I say, he's watchable, he's bankable. He's not a B-level guy, I don't think. And even though I wasn't a fan, honestly, of Free Guy, I kind of had the same vibes with this one, and I think this one's a little better than the other one because Free Guy was just kind of a mark for itself.
This is also
This one,
yeah. I was gonna say this is also on par with those. Did you watch Guardians of the Galaxy or do you not? Did you skip that? Because that's kind of the same thing.
I've watched them, and they're just there to me. I mean, I like Kurt Russell a lot, so I wanted to see him, obviously, but I'm just not a big fan of the Guardians films. I know it's heresy with a lot of our audience, but I'm just spitting facts. It just doesn't do much for me.
The way Ryan Reynolds acts is the same way Chris Pratt acts, and when he was on, I believe he was in Parks and Recreation, or Community, one of the two.
Yeah.
And he acts the same way. So these are these actors, going into it. I know. I mean, if there's a woman in here, usually in a film, they're gonna be better, outshine him a little bit then. But then again, and a lot of people say, well, that's just incredibly woke. I'm like, that's no. If you've never known these characters and known these actors, they've always done this because the humor of a woman being better than them, that was always their thing in their movie. Them being beat up by a girl. There was always humor. Now, other movies, I can see that they've gone woke, and as far as that crap, and purposely you have to put down the guy in order, in order to build the girl. So, yeah,
well, maybe people find humor in that. I don't get it. Shows up and she rolls 100 and just boom destroys everybody. It's like, yeah, okay. I mean, nothing was really entertaining about it to me. Like I say, the CGI. I want to bring up Catherine Keener because she plays, I guess, the evil corporate person. Because of course, evil corporate heads now are women. Of course, they've assumed all positions of power in the world. Men are just lucky to be a part of it. And they de-age her, and then they had this really bad editing sequence where the evil one, well, the old evil one goes, back in time and visits her at the corporate office, and they're going back and forth. I'm like, are they even trying to make this look realistic? Because it's not. And I'm not even talking about the poor de-aging. Now it looks awful.
And
you can clearly see where you can clearly see in the scene that's got the background of the city at night, where the one sitting there just looking at her mark, and the other one walking, in front of the part that's already playing, and it's just so blatantly bad. I'm going, God, this is distracting.
I was looking at her,
the editing was just horrible.
I was looking at her face, and it looked the same. It didn't look like they used CG in her face at all.
Maybe not. Maybe it's practical effects, but it looked really bad to me. It looked like
when you put two same character in the same scene, whether you're like they're from recording, they're just splicing it in. Yeah, it could have been bad editing. It's never usually good. But the villain was really, really, really weak, and not even So
my question would be, why even have a villain in a movie like this? You want a family-friendly movie? Just have that happen, where they just kind of discover what's going on. There's a lot of ways they could have taken this movie, and that's my frustration about it. They just played it safe, checked all the boxes, and it's boring. I mean, there's so many things they could have done, and they didn't. And like you say, Ruffalo's character, you're not the biggest Ruffalo fan, okay?
No, and I was glad he was hardly in there. But I did get a chuckle out of, though. I was gonna say, with Ryan Reynolds and him, and finally he's like, "Come here, son," and he hugged. And I was like, "This is really, really weird, awkward," but it's still kind of funny though. It's like, "Son, you're good. You're gonna be fine without me." He's hugging him. I was like, can't tell him he's gonna die, but he already figured he's going to die. That's why they're both there.
So the scene where they both, the young and the young Reynolds and the regular Reynolds, go to meet their father, and he's, it seems to be a physics classroom. It's probably astrophysics or something along those lines. And all the people in there are whining and complaining to the students about having to solve something and take 2 months and all that. And he was up there talking all grandiose about stuff. And they have some excerpts from a book about solving an equation, and they have all those stuff up on the board.
Mhm.
I kind of nerd out for stuff on words, but I think they're done absolutely in the most horrible way possible because, first of all, anybody that's teaching that high level stuff or any of them, unless they're a teacher and they're getting a crap salary or they're grad assistant or something like that, are working their way up the food chain, somebody in this position, if they choose to teach that, they're not looking at the audience. They're going to look at everybody in there, even if they're the best of the best, with disdain, because that's how arrogant and out of touch professors are, especially in the hard
Yep.
sciences. And it's all about funding and this and that. And he comes across as almost like, he's got this great vibe with his classroom and this and that. I'm like, really? Totally not believable at all. And I go,
Yeah.
he looks nerdy enough where he should be able to pull off. But I think that scene that we first meet on, I'm going, no. And then what's worse is, and you brought this up earlier, I want to jump on it. He doesn't want to listen to them, even though they're all aware of who each other is instantly, which is kind
Mhm.
of okay and believable. He's not freaking out about it. He's more concerned, well, if we can't know anything because it's going to do whatever. And I thought,
Yeah.
you are a dick. And the only really good line is the one, even though it feels forced to me, is when Reynolds says to him, hey, stop being a scientist for a moment and be a dad. And I'm like, ooh, that's supposed to be the big line. It sums up how Ruffalo was a jerk early on. So it's like, well, why would I even like him later on? With a face turn or something. It's just, like I say, it feels like two different movies. It feels like almost like a kid's action
Eh,
adventure movie up
yeah.
until the Ruffalo thing, and then after that, all the adult stuff seems to kind of come out, and it's two incomplete halves, and just it doesn't work.
It still felt like a kids movie because the kid gets used to the drone thing, later on, and he's taking out the bad guys. And when the bad guys get killed, they poof. There's no blood. They just poof because when you die outside your time, you just atomize. So that was really kids friendly right there. They did that. To me, like I said, this was right on the lines. If you watched the Valerian Project, or I mean, actually that actually might be a little more less kid friendly. But yeah, like Shark Boy and Lava Girl, or Shark Girl and Lava Boy, whatever it is. In the sense where the villains are not really villains; they're just good looking
They're
people.
placeholders. Yeah.
Yes. So it did feel like a kid movie all the way through. Yes, I mean, even when he was on Ryan Wilder's, sorry, Wilder, Ryan Reynolds. He's talking about Van Wilder, like got me screwed up. when Ryan Reynolds and Zoe Saldana, when she comes from the cabin, hide out there, and young Adam's like, I'm gonna go outside because they're all like hot and bothered because they haven't seen each other it's been like 4 years for her.
And of course, she physically overpowers him too.
Yeah, which is funny though. I got a chuckle at it though. I was more younger. I was like, oh, this is gross. I'm leaving. But it was fun before though because when he was Adam on younger 12 or Adam, when they're at his house before they leave and all stuff, or being chased by all the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
When Ryan Reynolds was healing up, Ryan Reynolds had basically showed him like, hey, we're gonna confront these bullies, because he's tired of being up, and in that sense right there, he was trying to change his future a little bit. You see, he's not supposed to do that, but he was doing it, and it backfired. And so the kid guy ends up getting hurt. He's not ready to take on the two bullies. He runs back in the little storage shed, which has all of Ryan Reynolds' futuristic gadgets. He finds his phone in there, and he's like, and he's basically Ryan Reynolds. He's like basically locked out, let him in. He's sitting there. And he's like, who's this? He's like, that's my wife. He's like, wait, we get a wife? He's like, because it was funny earlier because the kid was asking him like, do we get laid? Do we have a girlfriend? Do we stop? And it's like he's like, he's basically the first thing until time travel. And the first thing he asks is like, are you getting laid? So it is kind of funny that the kid would ask that, and then later on in the cabin when they're like, and when he finally sees, he's like, oh, he's still grossed out by it.
And to me, the biggest problem you could argue in here, if I want to be a real dick about it, is that the biggest problem we have in here is that parents' inability to have a conversation with their kid. And I mean, not that that's a new idea or new theme, but it's hard to do that when you only have one of them around. And the kid's 12, and a kid at 12 is not going to be grossed out by people making out. They're going to be curious, and they just completely falsely portray this at all. The funniest scene with the kid to me was at the beginning. Bullies are chasing him. He's running down the hallway and knocking books down and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that it would actually get that far in the school, but he walks around, he goes around the corner of the stairwell, and he accidentally knocks the books down, and he stops for a second, comes back up, picks them up, and he goes into Ryan Reynolds' smooth ladies man voice,
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I'm really sorry about that." And he picks it up. She's like, "Oh no." And I guess that's supposed to be funny. I thought I would like to have seen him use his smart aleckness, but his intelligence to verbally win some situations. And here he comes across as a whiny little kid because he's being bullied, rather than, "Hey, I may not be able to physically get my way out of certain situations, even if it's pliable, but I got to figure out a way to do that." And your point about him trying to learn that as an adult and still suffering from it, I think is interesting, but again, not explored. And like I say, a movie like this, if you're a Ryan Reynolds fan, you're gonna like it no matter what. Nobody can say that Ryan Reynolds has ever been bad or a movie has been as bad. I've never heard that once in my life. You know, ever since 2005 or whatever when I started seeing him and stuff. Probably longer for you, but it's just that's the reality of the situation we're in. So you're right. Maybe there's an expectation the average moviegoer that should see it like myself should have about Ryan Reynolds, but same old, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but see, my brother doesn't like Ryan Reynolds movies at all. So when he finally sees a movie that he likes with Ryan Reynolds, I'm always so shocked. I'm like, oh my gosh, you actually like a movie with Ryan Reynolds? Because all he does is complain. Is like, oh, he doesn't like his humor. But yet he'll go. He's one of those people like he doesn't like Ryan Reynolds' humor, but he loves Will Ferrell. So it always throws me off because I always look at those two being like these different types of humor, but they play the same character in every film. So it always throws me off when he says he likes Will Ferrell movies, but doesn't like Ryan Reynolds movies. I'm like, what's different between those two when they both have some really bad movies? But
There's a lot of difference between those two. It's not even close.
I know, but the humor though, like they said, like
totally different kind of humor.
I know, but I said it's different humor, but you know, they both have bad movies though.
I will take Will Ferrell in bad movies over Ryan Reynolds in good ones.
So, what was that one? The basketball movie with Will Ferrell.
That was a play on the ABA.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
that's not a good movie, but that's another movie.
And the kid that was threatened the old man about drinking Mountain Dew, and you know, I'll come at you like a spider monkey. Unfortunately, I heard he died like the great Scott Hall. So rest in peace. Hey yo, as Ed would say. Hey yo, this was an average film to me at best. If you like anything about Ryan Reynolds, you'll probably find it entertaining. It's a typical Hollywood written by young kids, and you know, of course, a whole bunch of them, because not one person knows how to write a movie anymore. And that's what it feels like it's come across to me. I will just simply say this, and I don't mean this in a negative way. It's typical Netflix crap. It's just there. You can have it on. It may not be offensive, but it's like white rice. You got to do something with it, and here you get almost a 2-hour serving of it. And I'm being generous. I'm not in a bad mood.
I know.
It's just that's how I feel.
That's our new rating now. How many white rices does this get? 2 from Rob. 2 out of 5.
Then we have to talk about whether it's long grain or some other kind, or even the broken rice, the leftover bits, which are still viable. But we won't go there. This is not the food version of Extreme Movie Show. All right. Any other final thoughts about this film?
Not that I enjoyed it, and I completely think that it just wasn't made for you.
Yeah, the movie sucks. You probably can find other better movies to watch, other things to spend your time on. At least get an emotional reaction.
And I'll just say, if you think this is a bad movie, there are tons of worse movies on Netflix.
Yeah, and they're all just like this. All right, guys. Check us out on Sunday night. This coming up one, we're going to be reviewing the next movie, allegedly maybe in the Rocky franchise, which is going to be a point we're going to talk about, and that's Creed. Based off the success of Rocky Balboa from 2006, we're going to dive into the extension of it.
I thought we were talking about the band.
That's even worse than this film. Okay.
With arms wide open, Rob.
Well, no, you don't get me started on 80s music. Eyes Wide Shut for you and all the Kubrick lovers out there, which I think there's me and maybe Dalton, not sure.
Hey,
Dalton,
Eyes Wide Shut.
You'd be bigger, huh?
That's your description of this movie. Eyes Wide Shut. Don't watch it.
No, it's a great movie. Fantastic movie. That was a film like this piece of crap. Cookie cutter crap. Well said. You know, it's sometimes we don't need a new variation on old thing. We just say it's crap. It's bullshit. You waste it. It's a time sink. It's a money waster. It's forgettable. It's a background music while you're doing chores. Whatever. All right, guys.
This movie held my attention. I wasn't looking at my phone at all. Most movies, I'm looking at my phone because I get bored.
I'm happy for you.
Damn well should be.
Now go suck Ryan Reynolds off in this, and we'll get done here tonight. All right, guys. Have a good night. Take care, and as always, stay extreme.
Maybe I will.